So, hello everyone. We welcome you all to this exciting event, where Diksha shares her journey of how she got into FAANG, and we're very glad to have her with us. A very accomplished individual, which we will get to later on during the talk. And uh, quick, quick shout out to like AIML community Nepal. Like we've been working on doing such sort of events just to uh, you know, get maybe the beginners or the practitioners or the senior people together in one platform that is our Slack channel. And through that, we can collaborate, grow, and learn from each other. That's our goal. And I hope uh, everybody that is here, like Zini, continues our vision. And this we see here's more on Slack, and we'll keep doing more events. And we want to hear from you. What kind of events do people want? So yeah, great to have everyone here. And I'm sure like we'll have a great event today with Diksha. And just a quick intro about how the session would go, where we were actually discussing like what would be the best way to get our information across without having the viewers fatigue on your side, so we settled on the conclusion that a conversational talk would rather be more interesting than just a presentation of some sorts. And the main reason why we asked for questions um, in our registration form, was that like this whole talk is created in such a way to answer all those questions. So even though like we may not have the floor for taking in all the questions, like all your questions, I think hopefully have been addressed in our like the format that we've uh, prepared for you all. So yeah, with that being said, like let's just get into it. And to start it off, like Diksha, we can start off with your introduction. Yeah.
For sure. Just before I start, again, shout out to AIML. I think they did a good job. They're doing a good job in like these creating these experience sharing sessions. There's already been one, hoping to have few more as well. And sorry to the viewers, I might be a little sloppy. It's 6 in the morning here. I try to be as awake as possible, but I might still be like a little here and there. Um, cool. Yeah, a little bit of introduction about myself. I wanted to share like my journey till now. I was in Nepal till my 12th. I did my high school from DAV. It was a really great experience. I got my basics strong, but I also got opportunity to get into cultural and sports activities, which is great. I did want to come to the US after my 12th, but I got really bad scores in SAT. Luckily, NITs in India, they're like one of the renowned Indian colleges, had a great quota for students from abroad. I had decent grades in 12th, and that allowed me to get in. I worked at Goldman Sachs. I did my internship at Goldman Sachs after my third year, and then got a PPO offer and got in Goldman Sachs after that. I got a good chance to come to the US for my training for three months. It was really fun. The training was a smaller part of it, going around different cities. Exploring New York was a bigger part of it. Um, uh, I worked there for 2 years, and then I got a chance to come to the US. I had to go through the process of like applying to colleges, give GRE, TOEFL, and then since US is really expensive, I started looking for jobs in campus, RA, TA, anything like working at Starbucks, working inside the campus in restaurants, anything that could save me dollars. I started looking for that. I did work at Starbucks for a while, like for almost a year, still struggling with trying to get some kind of an RA opportunity with the professors. And after a while, and a good rapport with my professor, I got a job as a research analyst at IBM, working with my professor. Um, the project itself was on memory optimization in GPU. So there was this PhD student who had worked on some kind of a memory optimization, like a theoretical memory optimization that can be done on GPU so that the GPU computations are not bottlenecked on I/O. Um, and I had a chance to implement that in IBM. They had their own programming language. It was not really research, but more on software engineering that I had to work on, like implementing it rather than doing some kind of a research there. But it was good experience because when you're doing research or when you're working with your professor in a very corporate setting, it's a different setting altogether. After that, I interned at Facebook. My journey to getting into Facebook was also very interesting. I did not get through when I applied from my college, but I'm a huge fan of hackathons. I love going to hackathons, like trying to build some prototypes, demoing it. And that's where I again got in touch with some employees at Facebook. They really liked our idea in the hackathon. From there, I got a call like an introductory call from Facebook, and then I interviewed with them, really industry style, some code, lead code type of interview questions, and then I got an internship at Facebook. Um, I although did not get like a PP like a an offer for a full time at Facebook, and I was definitely very disheartened. But uh, because of like some of my college friends and also like having that perseverance to do better or do good, I started preparing to get into like Google or any of the FAANG companies. And eventually, after like 4 months of hard work, like some work, I got into Google. And then, yeah, being there after working with like smartest and kindest of people for like almost 4 years, I wanted a new challenge in my life. And just a year and a half back, I decided to move into a startup, like going from a big corporate into a startup. And that's my journey till now.
Oh, so I think Uganda has some connectivity issues. Um, Meanwhile, anybody who wants to ask any questions to Diksha, you can go ahead. Your questions that were there in the form will be addressed later. Okay. Did anybody say anything, or I missed? If you have any questions, you can directly ask Diksha till the time Yugant is here.
In case nobody has any questions, I can also like maybe dig a little deeper into how I got into Google because I think that's also of interest of people who are joining in here. Um, so yeah, I do have an article that is posted on Medium. It says cracking the coding interview. Let me share it around here as well. Give me 1 second. Let's see. Yeah, do take a look at this. But I've tried consolidating my idea of how you can prepare for the interview. I tried dividing the section into how you can grab an interview call, to how you can prepare for it, and then how you can perform in an interview itself. In general, I think in today's world, when there are a lot of layoffs happening, a lot of people are finding really difficult to even grab an interview call, right? Like just they do apply online to like thousands of companies, and they only get maybe an interview call from one or two of those companies. So one thing that I really believe in is networking. Like networking not just in a way that okay you have to go for a conference, but also like connecting with people on LinkedIn. A friend of mine who was working at who was studying at that time at Berkeley was struggling with the same thing, and she started like literally pinging like hundreds of people on long LinkedIn every single day, and only like you can imagine even though she pinged like 100 people, there were only one or two that responded, but she did get a referral from one or two of those people and finally bagged a job at Microsoft. So I think it's a lot about like there might be a lot of rejects that you might be getting here and there, but if you are like very deterministic and you persevere, then it is possible to do that by like just being consistent with it. Anyways, I know you got this back, so we can continue with it.
Yeah, yeah, very, very sorry. Like we just had a power cut and yeah,
That's okay.
messy situation.
I hope I was like Manisha was able to
Anyways, moving forward, like yeah, yeah. So like uh hello, are you still there? Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
I can hear you now. Okay. So so like rather than straightly
Okay, there is some issue. So there was another question by Satyaraj. Do you think it's a bit harder for students at Nepal to join and start the journey as you did have from US? So
Yeah.
how do you think it's for us directly applying from Nepal, or is that even possible, or what is the situation there? What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know directly in terms of Nepal, mainly because I did my undergrad in India, but I think it's kind of similar setting, right? Where you are basically doing your undergrad from there and you want to apply either to FAANG directly or you want to apply for coming to the US for masters. I think coming to the US for masters is very straightforward. There are a lot of people who do that, apply for scholarship, apply to colleges, etc. Getting into FANG, it might still be possible um, because like all of these companies do allow for online applications, like where you don't really need to have college admissions in there, and they do have like a lot of programs that, especially after COVID, instead of you having to come to the US, there might be a lot of complications because of visa. They do allow for remote working, and that has increase the opportunities of getting into these companies from Nepal or anywhere in the world. That said, it might be a little harder than trying to apply from the US because, again, people try to hire people who are in the same vicinity, who are in the same area. But I would say, like, that doesn't mean that we should not try. Give it a try. Ask for referrals, try to get a call. If you get a call, try to ace the interview. And I'm sure like it's something that's not like impossible. I don't have a good example of whether somebody has gotten into FANG from Nepal. If I had that, I think that would back it up really well. But never mind, you can always be the first one to do that, right? Or maybe I don't know if people who have done that.
yeah, yeah. Thank you for that. And so yeah, moving forward with that, I know, like so I think now we're really getting into the point of like concerning how can one actually get into FANG Manipura, because we've all seen those YouTube interviews where they're like concerning the lead code practice karne yo garne and त्यसपछि system design गर्ने वाला कुराहरू it all comes up हैन अनि so like uh like that's one whole big thing ani we'll break it down into chunks and I'll ask you questions uh like just so that it becomes more clear as we go in the ani so I think one question like on top of everybody's head is like concerning like are those coding competitive experience actually like useful for gaining experiences or like personal development like एकदम needful कुरा हो कि or like it's something you don't really need to do this, okay? Because all the world seems to be very focused in it. Like then you have to ace those.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So getting into FANG itself, for a lot of software engineering jobs, they do have a standard format where you need to go through like at least three or four of these algorithmic style coding questions, right? And I think
Yeah.
these competitive, like these different competitions, they allow, they give you some taste of it, where You have to like basically read the question, then find out an algorithm to solve for it, and then code it up, right? Um, that said, I know that nowadays lead code has a lot of these questions, and then just doing a lot of lead code will help you get there. Now, in terms of whether that is really useful in your day-to-day life at Google or at FAANG, it is less useful, but I think it does increase your aptitude a little more. And that's what they're trying to basically vet you on. They don't really know what language you'll probably be working on. Technology is moving really fast. It's not that they can have like specific questions around maybe, I don't know, like what you're going to do in your day-to-day life is coding, right? And if there is any way they can vet you on that, they'll try to do that. And the industry has figured out the easiest way to do that is ask these algorithmic style questions. So these different competitions, I think they allow for them to understand whether you're good at it or not.
Mm.
So I would
Mm.
say the competitive coding experiences are really useful
Yeah.
for getting into FANG, and I think it doesn't hurt personal development because I feel like it also improves your aptitude.
Yeah, definitely. Like thinking from a perspective of building a software, you actually rely upon these fundamental things like data structures and algorithms.
Right.
And coming to that point, like, uh, mm, how much of it is important, like the basics of it, like data structures, algorithms, how much do you invest your time upon it to like build yourself for these kind of maybe interviews for these or and like in general being a software engineer?
Yeah, so being a general software engineer, I think a lot of the things that'll help you is your experience once you get into it, what you're currently working on, putting a lot of effort there. To get into FANG, all my Google interviews were these coding style, like the data structures, algorithm questions. So I would say fairly important. Like if I'm putting in 3 months of my effort in preparation, I would put 8 hours a day in lead code style questions. And again, different style of questions, right? Like don't be afraid to get into propagation or dynamic programming or recursion, because I think those are the most scariest one. But I think try to attack those earliest as possible so that you're comfortable with it.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely a good advice there. Yeah. So, anyways, moving forward, like you build up this whole, you prepare for 3 months, you're doing all those things right, and then you're answering all the like, and then you're scoring high on your lead code practice questions too, and then you're like, and then you get into the interview. How what's the interview like?
Yeah, so I guess once you're in the interview, like at least for coding questions, it's more straightforward, right? Like it's going to start with an introduction about yourself. I would say try to always, like, it's good to be spontaneous, but sometimes we do get nervous when we are spontaneous. So try to prepare for what your introduction is going to be. I also try to include like few things in my introduction, like who I am, but things like how I believe in learning, how I believe in positivity, how I believe in collaboration, because when the interviewer is trying to interview you, they're also trying to see if they will be able to work with you in the future or not. You can be the
Yeah,
smartest person in the room, but you can still be an ass, and that might not be a good look in your interview. That said, don't stress it too much. Try to be your own self, but one, in your introduction, try to bring in these things around like how you believe in learning and positivity. Try like the rest of your interview in your, like if it is programming, then also try to listen really well to the interviewer. If they're trying to give any feedback, try to listen to that as well, because I remember at Google there was this one section on when we were like trying to grade people. They also try to grade you on how easily you, or how well do you listen to feedback, and how well do you incorporate that into your solution. So always be try to provide your own solutions. But if the interviewer is saying something, try to also listen to it, understand it, think through it, and then try to see whether you want to incorporate that or you want to disagree to it. That said, it's not always necessary that you always like commit to it. It is possible that they are only trying to like ask you tricky questions. So it is also okay to disagree to it, but make sure you're thinking really well in the interview itself. And again, in the end, they also open up for any last minute questions you want to ask, and try to ask some good questions, like where it shows to the interviewer that you are really interested in the team, but you also are really clear about what you want to do or what you want to achieve. Because that also shows clarity to the interviewer that you have it all sorted. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 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 definitely. Like moving in with your own energy of like positive thinking and like problem solving and like of explorative mindset. I think that's important because like yeah, at the end of the day, they're interviewing you to see if you're a person they want to work with. At the end of the day, that's an important thing to remember all the way. Yeah,
Exactly, exactly.
yeah, like great advice there. So yeah, like also in this theme of like Unzani interview, like what do you feel like was the most difficult part of the interview?
For sure. Let me think about it. So, I guess one of the difficult parts for me during the interview was, or during the preparation of the interviews, was keeping up the motivation. I think it's really difficult to keep it up, like especially in the beginning when you're still preparing, there might be a lot of rejects that you get, and that's very demotivating. The good thing for me was I had a really good group that I worked with together. So every evening we would all sit together in the library, like really solve questions together. So if they would come across a question, they would share it with me and I would try to solve it if I came across a question. So I think that community really helped through getting most of it. That said, in the interview itself, I would say system design, cracking that is one of the most difficult things because it's so wide, right? Like
Yeah.
coding interviews, you can still like be like, okay, data structures, okay, you can work on stacks, strings, dynamic programming, etc. But system design is so wide. I know there are some good articles or good resources out there which tell you like different formats of system design itself, but a
Mm.
lot of times we just go through it with like a blind mind, right? What I mean by that is when you come across system design or when you're preparing for system design, it's always really important to like go really deep. If you
Mm.
don't understand a term, try to really understand it instead of being like, okay, I need to have a database, I need to have like some kind of a server, some kind of a client. Instead of mugging it up, I think really understanding it is difficult and also it takes a lot of time. So I think for me, the system design part was the most difficult part.
Yeah, yeah, I think yeah, thank so moving forward, like so so the introvert part is done. Like, uh, how how much do you think like is it possible for someone who is in Nepal, we're a particular group of people who are very interested in like Unzani getting into FAANG from Nepal, since we're in Nepal right now, with the major population at least, right? I'm guessing. So like, what do you think? Like the possibility of Unzani applying from here and he getting there, and this was he. How does it work?
Yeah, so
Your
I
thoughts
did
on
try to answer this a little bit, Yugant, when you were there, when you had cut off, but I can elaborate that a little bit. I think in
it?
general, it might be a little more difficult to get into FANG from Nepal than from the US. And I don't have a good example of someone who has gotten into FANG from Nepal directly. But I do know there's like this huge community of Nepali people in FANG. At Google, we had like this Slack channel. Sorry, we had this Meet channel, and we had a lot of like Google groups within the within Google itself for Nepali people. Um, a, an advice for people in Nepal who want to get into FANG: get in touch with someone. someone from Nepal in these different companies and ask them for referrals, ask them for how to prepare for it. Try to look for mentors who can mentor you through that journey itself. Again,
Mm.
it might be difficult, but I think it's still worth a try. And
Yeah.
why not be that example that you're looking for, right? So just try to get in touch with someone from Nepal who is currently in FAANG and try to start your journey there because referrals generally work really well.
Yeah, yeah. I think I see it in the chat that like Shishir, I know someone who went there in 20, like who did that from Nepal in 2014. So
Nice.
yeah, I think that's one example we can like. Then it's very rare that like one person. Yeah. Uh, so like let's just like quickly like could you Nishal wants to know like could you elaborate more on like what system design actually means in there when you said
Yeah, system design interviews basically last like for 45 minutes to 1 hour, and they're really vague, where they
yeah
ask you questions like, okay, design YouTube or design WhatsApp, those kind of
yeah
questions. And a big part of it is really feature gathering, where because the question is so vague, you need to
yeah
ask really good questions to the interviewer. Okay, when you say YouTube, how many users are there? Okay, if there are like 1.5 million users, how many users are uploading videos to YouTube, how many are downloading or streaming videos from YouTube. What are the different features that you want in MVP? So a big part of it is feature gathering. Then you go into like high level design where you basically say what are the different components of it. Like if it is mobile, if it is React app, what is the server, database, if you want to have some like different kinds of services itself, one for uploading, one for downloading, etc. Then you dig deeper into what kind of technologies you'll use for each of it and what kind of programming languages you'll use for each of it. For example, for database, you might have MongoDB, you might have some SQL database, some NoSQL databases, and you try to reason about why you'll use one versus the other because there are like trade-offs of using different technologies. So system design in general defines like how you build the whole system with minimum set of features, and you also dig deeper into what kind of technologies you're going to use in there. So it doesn't involve a lot of coding. Maybe 5 minutes in the end if the interviewer is particularly interested in one particular thing, but it's a lot of like whiteboarding, drawing boxes, trying
yeah
to like reason about different things. I have a very
yeah
good, there's a very good GitHub link on the system design. Let me share it.
okay.
Okay. Sorry,
Okay, well,
system design.
you get to share with that, right? Now? Like, I will start off with another question, like, around maybe like, you've prepared enough and stuff, you know, like most of the things we really hear is like it's entry level, neither. You prepare for it, and it's all entry levels of suninsa. But like, how much does your CV, your experience come into play, and this like how much do you then furnish it and what additional soft skills then do you use to make it more attractive and stuff and like maybe more on like then someone more experienced man say like maybe someone who has worked for 3 years or so how does that individual get into FAANG like just a
Yeah,
little bit
for sure. I think for entry level, it's fairly easier, right? Like I wouldn't say fairly easier. You still need to have few things in your resume because that's basically like the first filtering point for the recruiters or the interviewers. Um, like for entry level, I think having projects apart from your college, like because I remember at Facebook, one guy looked at my resume and he was like, okay, all of these projects look the same across like 200 people that I've been seeing. There's nothing new in it. So he outrightly rejected it. But then he said that, okay, he really gets interested into those resumes where there are like hackathons, where there are things apart from your coursework that is part of their resume itself because that shows that you're not only like doing things for education or you're not just following the herd, but you are trying to find out other ways to like click on your curiosity, like hackathons or your own self-led projects or projects that's involved with other people. So that became more on entry level. For people who have few years of experience, at least in the startup world, we are trying to find out or trying to look for people who have some relevant experience. The reason is because in a startup there are less mentoring opportunities. So we do try to find out expertise in that area who not necessarily we can tell what to do, but who can tell us what to do, right? Uh, so that's more on the startup side. But I know at Google or FAANG, any of these companies, and I'm gonna interchangeably use Mang and FAANG because now Facebook has changed into Meta, really. Um, but they do have good mentoring opportunities. So they do try to look for more of these soft skills. Like I mentioned, they're trying to look for people who they want to work with, not necessarily have those particular skills, because in FAANG, people are looking for more generic skills, right? They're trying to see what your aptitude is, whether you're able to code, because everybody at Google codes, whether you're able to whether you have some cognitive ability, like be able to handle different situations. So they're trying to look for more of generic skills through these different like 4 or 5 interviews, where some of these interviews, although they are really focused in your coding skills, they're not really, because the kind of questions they ask tries to delve into your cognitive ability itself. Google also recently started this behavioral round where they ask you questions about, like, okay, tell me about a time you had a conflict with another teammate. Sometimes it's not necessary you've had those experiences, but what they're again eventually trying to find out is whether they can work with you and whether you pass the mark of that aptitude and cognitive ability or not. So I would say the experiences do matter a lot when you're joining a startup. Your experiences, although is very, very, very helpful when you even join FANG, but
Yeah.
it might not be the most important thing. Your other skills, your like whole perseverance to learning, your growth mindset, all of that has a bigger weight than primarily your experience, because a lot of it you're going to learn when you join those companies.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's all great now for now. So yeah, so I think we've like pretty much covered the whole aspect of uh getting into FANG. What sort of things were important for you during those times? How did you prepare for it? And how can one maybe from Nepal could possibly apply for it there? But uh we keep hearing it like there's this craze about like Nani, uh, people in FANG, they come from really good colleges in the first place. I know. And either like in several campaigns like off campus placements and stuff. I know त्यो हरू पनि भइरहन्छ. अनि people start out really early from like हुन्छ नि अलिकति top colleges. अनि how much does this come into play? Like the bigger the university, the better the chances. अनि like हुन्छ नि यस्तो यस्तो कुराहरूमा चाहिँ what's your take on this, or like what's your view on this?
Sure. I'm not going to lie. It does help if you are from a good university. And that's from my current experience at the startup as well. We do get like hundreds of resumes, and sometimes it becomes difficult for us to go through every single resume. So sometimes we do filter in terms of university, because the thought process over there is, okay, if they've cracked a good university, they probably have that learning capability. They also can work hard towards getting into these big universities. So they've really cracked that down for us, right? So I think it does help being in a good university. I think it gets your, or even these like new AIs that filter your resumes. I'm sure they do have some weightage of that towards your university. That
Yeah.
said, it's not the only thing that is considered when they are trying to look at your resume, right? They also try to look
Yeah.
at the different skill sets you have. My experience itself, right? North Carolina State University is not the best university. It's not even it's not one of the Ivy colleges in the US. And I did not really get through by any kind of college placement. I had to apply online. I had to like add more things to my skill sets itself. Like I said, I had to like go to hackathons. I wouldn't say I had to go to hackathons because I enjoyed going to hackathons, and that's
Mm.
really like keeping me up. But
Yeah.
those hackathons added on to my skill set. So I think the your college can be important. So if you are like in your 12th or a little earlier, try to get into a good college. I think that also motivates you to do good, to do good. But if you're not, don't be disheartened. I think these universities, they do allow you, or they do have programs where anybody from any university can apply to it. Uh, right now, especially for FANG, they also have this extra round that they do, like coding challenges that they do before your initial interview, which is not a lot of effort for them, but that's their main filtering criteria. So your college becomes lesser of a weight, but these coding challenges become more of a weight for that filtering of your resumes. And they do send it out to everybody, no matter what college you've studied from.
Mm.
So in some places it does help, but in maybe 85% to 90% of the cases, what they're 85% to 90% of the cases, they've now figured out a way to not filter out any of the good candidates who are not from these big universities. So I think your preparation matters more than your college itself.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. In this line of like educational uh talk, like I wanted to add in like Kundani, uh people go in for masters, they're expensive, and then people go in for PhDs because there's more funding in it, like generally in the US. So like even after you do this, like you apply into a FANG and like do they consider you overqualified? Because like hearing from you, like they also want someone they can groom from like the very start, I know, like so, some fresh undergraduates. So just so they can develop them in their own sort of like unzani school of thought one, no, but a fango, but like PhD masters, there's more expertise in it, like unzani. Oh, what sort of like unzani job prospects are like unzani, or do they like Kunzani label them overqualified and stuff? Or Ani, what sort of like Kunzani research department do they have? Like, could you delve into that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So when I would say like when companies like when FANG they um, like sometimes when you apply to FANGs as a PhD, and when they say that you might be overqualified, it doesn't really mean that they won't be able to groom you or something. But what they really think about is because you have come from like these highly skilled workforce, and you are so much focused on research, will you be okay with like working on software engineering roles or not? The reason is because they also want some fit, not just in terms of where they want you to work on, but also where you would love it and where you would want to stay in that particular role, right?
Yep.
Uh, that said, corporate itself, there might be a lot of things where, a lot of roles that come up are more about like productionizing things, reliability, more software engineering specific, and not research based. Although a lot of these companies like Google, Facebook has Fair, Google has a huge research department, and they only take in PhDs, right? So I think instead of maybe specifying it as overqualified, because for some of the roles, PhD students are really overqualified, right? Like they have
Yeah.
a lot of research, and just in general, like managers don't feel comfortable that all their hard work, I wouldn't really say like just their hard work, but whatever their field of expertise is, that is not getting leveraged, and they're very skeptic
Yeah.
about whether being a manager, they'll be able to provide them good work or not. So
Yeah.
in terms of PhDs getting into FANG, I think a lot of these companies offer a lot of research opportunities, and you can get into these companies. But if you want to particularly get into like a product-based like some kind of a product team, then you can always share that with the recruiter. and the recruiter can share that going forward with the managers, because I think it's more of a threat to the managers where they are concerned whether you are going to be happy in that role or not. But if you
Yeah.
really want to get into that role and then you want to grow as someone who's building a product instead of your particular expertise, I think that is some kind of communication that needs to be propagated through the
Yeah.
recruiter to the hiring committee.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. That definitely answers it. Uh, Also, like, moving forward in this field of like education, I know, like, we had some really interesting questions from, I think it has to be a teacher, I know. Like, you did say, like, since you were not from a really great college too, I know, like, the chances automatically अलिकति भए नि घट्ने भन्ने नि त हुन्छ नि त. But still, like, you went through and this, which you even like go into a lot of hackathons, events, seminars, I know. Ani, there was this one question where the teacher was asking, like, how do I teach students about tech when they're not even interested in events or seminars, or like the seminars are कसरी attend गर्ने? And this was a huge challenge for us too, like how do we get students to get more engaged in these things, because these we find really important for our own personal development पनि. So yeah, could you touch up on that?
That is a very interesting question. Yeah, I would say just leave them. It's their loss, right? Like they're not getting to know about like the opportunities. No, I'm kidding. Um, yeah, so I would say like I think it might get difficult. I'm not a teacher really, but I have seen like a lot of people don't get motivated. They're not even ready to listen to like if you're trying to raise awareness, right? What I would say might be useful here is trying out different experimentation. It's really about marketing, right? Like recently I was talking to a friend of mine about marketing, and he just told me like uh, marketing a lot of times is about experimentation, where you try like 10 different experimentations, and whatever works you try to double down on it, right?
Yeah.
So if people are not interested in it, then one of the ways is maybe trying to get in like some kind of an alumni who have got into FAANG to come and give a session, like
Yeah.
just come in a classroom, and like that's what happened in our school DAV in Nepal, where this guy who got into IIT, one of the most renowned colleges in India, he came in and he was like, hey, yeah, I got into IIT, this is what I did, and that raised awareness amongst us. If you ask people to like stand in line, go into a
Yeah.
hall, and then listen to this huge talk, if I was a student, I would have gotten bored and I would have probably like left or slept in the middle of it, or start playing like cricket with my friends around it. So I think there has to be some creative ways of raising that awareness. And one of it is
Yeah.
alumni or these kind of experience sharing session where you have like one-on-one interaction or multi-on-one interaction and more intuitive interactions. That's it. I'm not a marketing person, so I'm sure there are many other ways, but
Yeah.
putting a little more thought, a little bit more research on it might get you to what you want to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we need to work on that too. So moving forward, like, since you've like been in this field for some time now, and you've been in some prestigious universities, institutions, like, what do you think, like, about this, uh, this field of ours, like this information technology, this software engineering field, like, where is it headed? Like, there are very rapid advancements every day. I know, as a like developer myself, I feel like every day that some big announcement is happening, and I can't keep up. I know, so there's a lot of fear of missing out too, but there's also sticking to the basics, and there's also this like thought of like, where is this all
Yeah.
going to go? There's blockchain, there's like cybersecurity, there's a lot of things going on, you know. So like, I like, oh, what are your thoughts around it? Any like two, three, दुई तीनवटा कुरा भनेको छु, so like maybe try to address it
Sure,
one
for
by one.
sure. Yeah. This is a very philosophical question, and I think that's been lurking around in the entire world with the advancement of ChatGPT as well, right? Like,
Yeah.
like
Yeah, ambisyon din pala. Tingnan lang naman since yan.
that's funny.
Could
Manisha, can you?
Manisha, could you mute Rajendra?
I'm gonna wait maybe a few seconds. Um,
Manisha? I think.
Yeah, you can start over. I've muted him.
okay,
Okay.
okay, perfect. Yeah. So that's I find it a very philosophical question because again, like I said,
Is there any problem? Uh,
No, no, it's fine. It's fine.
it's fine, it's
Yeah.
fine. Thanks, Manisha. Um, yeah, so I was also talking to my husband around it, and then we were talking about like okay, are our jobs in danger right now, or like just around like the advancement is happening so fast, and it's hard to keep up with things. What are the things we really want to f focus on, or do we want to change our skill set? Do we want to
Yeah.
try to see what the world is offering and try to like pivot a little bit? I think it doesn't harm to do that. I know there's a lot of resistance towards it, especially after like 10 years of your experience or 15 years of your experience, right? Where you've been particularly focusing on maybe software engineering, but now you want to like maybe start working on prompt engineering, or you want to get a little more into like machine learning. That said, I don't think software engineering is still going to get obsolete. It's just that your skill set will probably be applied in different technologies itself. I know cloud computing is going to be huge going forward. There's definitely IoT, Internet of Things. There is cybersecurity, crypto or blockchain is another big one, and ML is another big one. And your basics, your foundational knowledge is always going to be very, very important for you to be able to ace any of these, right? Like, although these are like five separate technologies itself, your foundational software engineers are going to apply to each of these. Um, so I would say like keep your foundation, keep your basics really, really strong, but also try to see what the current world market is without seeing it as like a rat race or without seeing it as like competition, but seeing it from a very curious angle and seeing it from a very learning opportunity angle of sort. So, yeah, I would I would say your foundational knowledges are important, but also try to be more aware of what is going on in the world right now.
You are on mute, Yugant.
Sorry. It is like along the lines of like Zinni, what the world wants and what is next and what kind of skill sets like Zinni is designing and stuff. All like comes to the basics first of all, you know. But like even moving forward, like Zinni, when you sit in like Zinni, so maybe when you're applying to jobs and you like there's a different view on the opposite side, neither the people that like when you want to get you in the company or like who are screening for it, like when since you've now been in both shoes, I know, kind of, because now you're working for a startup, I know, and you yourself, like when you might hire people, you might take interviews, versus when you were like when giving out interviews, trying your best to get in. So what's that change like? What's the view from Zani being an interviewer to interviewee?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think it is a little bit of different perspective because when I was interviewing, that time I was more like, hey, my interview went so good, why did I get a reject? Or my interview was pathetic, I'm probably never going to get into this company, but the opposite kind of happens, right? So that's basically us not being able to understand what the interviewer is looking for particularly, and sitting at an interviewer's field. Like I said, few things that I generally look for is like whether I'll be able to work with that person or not. That person might be the smartest person, but they might still be an ass, so I don't want to really work with them. Or the person might not be the smartest person, but they're really jolly, they learn really fast, and those are the people I really want to work with. again, there are like people who are like all-rounders, right? Like they're really smart as well as they are really good to work with. They listen to what you're saying, they incorporate it, or they disagree to it. So I think from an interviewer's perspective, it is more about trying to see if you are the person they really want to work with. And if you are like maybe extremely serious, that can sometimes come out to be wrong. Um, Again, I would say like from an interviewer's perspective, an interviewee should not change their style at all. They should definitely be themselves. Uh, but one thing that I particularly tell people is try to be as positive as possible. Like your negativity basically makes the whole room negative, and then it might not come out in a very good way in the interview itself. So that's the only thing that I think you should consider. Apart from that, it's all about your own style. It's all about just how you behave. Otherwise, you should be behaving in your interview and not really like faking it, really. Um, but just try to be as positive as possible and less nervous. Drink a lot of water before getting into an Interview. That's from an interviewer's perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, so like, um, so now that you're like hiring people and stuff, I know. And since your company actually works with like your company is leveraging the power of ML, I know basically you're working for a computer vision startup, I know. So like what particularly sort of like skill set do you look into in an engineer, or like what's something you look for highly, like stack ma banda
Yeah,
quickly.
for sure.
Sort of.
So right now we were trying to hire like another ML ops person. We were also trying to hire like a full stack engineer and an entry level engineer as well. For the entry level engineer, we were just trying to see whether they are like open to learning and other things. So we were not really particularly looking for someone who has a lot of experience, but someone who has like shown passion in the field particularly. Um, when giving an interview, how do we vet for that? Is basically we try to ask questions. Sometimes they're not just coding questions; they're also like sometimes system design, trying to figure out whether they're at least able to like figure out the different nuances of that system that they're trying to build, and you giving them some prompts, whether they're able to accept that prompt and then work out of that or not. So when we are looking for like someone who we can mentor, we are particularly looking for someone who we think has shown that ability to like learn and be passionate about the field itself. And when we are looking for someone who has a lot of experience, we are particularly looking for like that particular skill set plus whether we can work with them or not. At Google, also, I had gotten a chance to interview a lot of people, and I think the different sections where we vetted people was on one, communication, whether they're good with communication or not, because it's going to be like a cross team. You're going to work with multiple different teams. The second
Yeah.
is whether they have technical expertise or not, like the skill set. The third is around like how well do you receive feedback? That was the third one. And the fourth one I'm particularly forgetting, but this basically like creates a picture of what people are looking for in an interview.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that would be particularly useful for the participants here, because like I was going through the list and there were a lot of students and people that like eventually want to get in. So I think that's a good perspective to have,
Yeah.
moving forward.
I'm also going to add one more thing, and
Yeah,
I don't know whether you have already have a question for that, Yugant, or not, but
yeah, yeah.
all of these big companies have good opportunities for all kinds of people. Like they have really good opportunities for even like students who are like first year out of college. I remember they started like at Google, they started this internship opportunities for people after their 12th grade, like after their plus two,
Mhm.
where they were like, okay, these are the people we cannot really get a lot out of. We cannot really productionize things, but we'll
Yeah,
try to teach them few things and we'll try to see if they can grow with us in their career or not. So I think these big companies have a lot of opportunities like fellowship programs, internship programs for like students at a very young age. Um,
yeah.
at Google, we also had a program where they picked product managers from engineering colleges. Which was very
Mm,
strange for me because it's more like cross discipline
yeah,
like internships, right? So yeah, a lot
yeah.
of opportunities I would say. Just try to research on it, ask people around, and you'll know like sky's the limit.
Yeah, yeah. Definitely gotta search through it, but like, thanks for the information that like Tanzania it's available there, and I think a lot of like participants here would like love to know that. And I think our a lot of questions that are coming up in the chat is also around that, like Tanzania, what time is the right time, or like Tanzania, where are the opportunities and stuff. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, now that we've like talked about how you cracked your interview and college education and stuff, importance and stuff. Now I wanted to like Kunzani, go a little into like your journey at Google. Okay, like there's a lot of things surrounding that like Kunzani. It's a dream company like FAANG, aber oil the Mang basically, na? So like it's a dream place for a lot of people and it's a dream for like a very huge population, yeah, but it's not like but it might not always be sunny there, it always has its like ups and downs, also like currently job layoffs, massive, but like I wanted to go touch a little upon like your journey at Google like what kind of expertise you gained there, being part of FAANG, especially like FAANG factorial is a kati like affect area, so could you like touch upon it? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So Google definitely was a dream for me as well. I remember
Yeah.
when Google had come to like our undergrad college for a presentation, they showed how they had like I don't know, is it called segways where you basically have like two huge tires, like people are like going around the campus in that. They have like cycles in there. They have like a lot of cafes where you can eat good food. And although I should have thought more about like what my career path is going to be like coding and all of this, but this was all very enticing to me. The cafes, we had a bowling arena, we had like wall climbing arena, all of that was very
Yeah.
enticing. And my experience at Google was exactly that for the first year. So as soon as I got into Google, my only focus was not really working in the team, but more about exploring these places, like
Yeah.
going for all the events. And there used to be events even in the afternoon. Like
Yeah.
during lunch, there would be events. In the evening, there would be events, which is not really very healthy for me because that's when I started slacking off a little bit in my work and I was not putting as much as effort because I used to come at 10, leave at 5, or sometimes leave at 4 for joining a lot of these events. But after like around 6 months, I did realize that this was really impacting me in a bad way. And luckily, I had extremely good managers who also could like constructively tell me that, okay, hey, there might be like few things that you want to incorporate, which is really healthy for me. And um, that's when I started really understanding the power of being at Google. They're like smartest and kindest of people at Google. Like you can learn a lot from them. You can technically grow a lot of your skills. I remember our code reviews, right? Used to be like it used to go on for weeks, especially when you join as an entry level, because there's so much of learning that you can get from all of those experienced people. And people want things in perfectionism, um, because Google does believe in quality. Like if they're shipping something to the customers, they don't want like hundreds or even like one of it failing. So I did get good technical expertise in terms of like software engineering principles, how to deep dive into particular things, as well as apart from that, I was still enjoying all of those different perks, right? I had gotten a chance to go to like multiple conferences in Europe. I went for like a coding program for education of students or education of girls in Estonia. And apart from that, again, like a lot of other events, like there used to be holy event, um, again, very good food. Uh, Huge community for, like, I'm a huge fan of basketball. Like, I love playing basketball. So I had a good team over there. So there was really work-life balance where I would say like my first 6 months was only life balance and not really work-life balance. But eventually, being with the smartest and kindest people, I think that helped me grow out of that, like being so kiddish to being a little more matured where I have that work-life balance as well. So yeah, my experience there has been amazing, and I just loved it. Yeah, I know I missed a lot of the questions you had asked around that as well, but feel free to like ask again, and then I can break it down.
Yeah, surely. Like before that, like I would just want to like give a quick shout out to Shishida. He's been like Kanzani, sharing links and keeping like Kanzani engaging with everyone who's asking questions. So you shout out for that. And like Manisha has shared the link for joining our community, so you can quickly join there. So with that being said, I know I was also like hoping you'd add a bit of like Kanzani, the experience you gained, like the kind of expertise you gained, like working in FAANG.
Yeah, for sure. So at Google, I worked at multiple different teams. So first team, I worked in Google Photos as an iOS engineer, and I was mostly working on DevOps kind of role. So the kind of expertise I gained over there was definitely some technical expertise in terms of like just iOS programming. But in terms of soft skills, I also understood why it is really important to have reliable systems and be able to communicate across multiple different teams, because it was a cross collaboration between our team and what the product team was trying to build. Then I joined NBU, which was Next Billion Users, and I stayed there for the longest. There I was working on building products for emerging markets like India, China, Brazil, etc. And the skills that I gained over here was more from a user's perspective. Like people in third world countries have very different view or even different kind of um, user journey than people in first world countries. And that was a good experience. We did a lot of user research trips in like India. We did one in Brazil. So that was nice. Again, expertise in terms of software engineering principles. I started working on Android. Initially, I was working on implementing a lot of things, but eventually, as I grew in my career, it was more about designing systems, like more reliable systems and scalable systems. So that was one of the expertise that I gained being at NBU. After that, I moved into like the startup incubator at Google. It's called Area 120, where you can come up with your own idea and you can start building things. Like they'll pay you for your own idea, which I think was so cool, like mind blowing. I got a chance to work on that. There, it was really about survival. So I did gain some skills on how you can pivot around multiple different phases just for survival, right? Like sometimes it's bad as well because you stop thinking about user journey and you start thinking about survival more. But you have to basically create a balance over there. So I would say like technical expertise definitely there because a lot of people like uh, I was able to get like mentorship from a lot of senior people who are like perfectionists in coding, and be able to deep dive in other things, be able to design scalable systems. But in terms of soft skills as well, be able to communicate well, um, and be able to understand what needs to be communicated as well was like a big part of it. You're on mute, Yugan. Or
Sorry. Uh, so yeah, like moving forward from that, I know you get to work on a lot of things that's like concerning a big part of FAANG, like moving forward, like you've also like concerning worked at Facebook one year, and you've worked at Google. So I wanted to know, like, what's any differences like working for these two great companies? And like, they're both great in their own terms. They're like, what do you find different, or what
Yeah,
was it like?
that's another very interesting question. And yeah, again, just I would say don't quote me on this. It is my personal opinion. I do
Yeah,
feel like people have different experiences working at different companies itself. But at Facebook versus Google, one, I found like Facebook had a much younger crowd. Like by much younger, I mean like very recent college grads, maybe age 22 to 27, to be most of it. At Google, there was a lot of freshers, but there were a lot of like a little older crowd as well, like people from like 27 to 32 or 35 years of age, although both are fairly young still, right? The other difference I found, like at Facebook, a lot of it was trying to ship products as fast as possible. At Google, it was more about trying to ship it with the best quality or the greatest quality as possible. So if a project would get delayed by 2 weeks or 3 weeks, it was okay at Google. At Facebook, it was more about try to ship it as fast as possible and then we'll roll forward. Like if we see any issues, we'll try to fix it. I think both of these work in different, they have their own trade-offs, but they also have their own advantages. So
yeah,
that is another difference that I found in terms of like just thinking about it. The third one that I found was during our performance reviews, right? At Facebook, people cared a lot about number of lines of code, but at Google they changed the performance reviews to include your problem statement and not necessarily your solution, because at Google they believed if you have lesser number of lines of code, then you have more efficient code, or you have really thought through it, so they focused a lot more on the problem statement as well. The last thing I would say at Google, this was very particular that I found was at Facebook, it was more about, okay, uh, try to get to users as much as possible, right? But at Facebook, the reputation mattered a lot. So I remember at Photos, at Google Photos, there was this one change we did, which basically sent hundreds of emails to every single user. And I remember we got called out in our all hands where Sergey and Larry, they were like, hey, stop spamming our users. You're not allowed to do that because the reputation is so important. So people do
yeah,
care a lot about the users, their privacy, all of that a lot more at Google was what I felt internally. I know there are a lot of like disputed things around that because I know
yeah,
there are a lot of articles where Google is under this lawsuit and all of that, but that is particularly my opinion.
yeah. Definitely, like we all have our personal experiences, right? And like a big thing about this talk is like it's all mostly like your personal opinion rather than it being the Unzani silver bullet or like Unzani the only fact one namani. So it's important to keep that in mind definitely because like for you it has been a great journey, but like Unzani, we keep seeing maybe some articles where like Unzani that for people and stuff. Yeah. So yeah, that is all there.
One more thing I'll add to that is
Yeah.
I think you did ask an initial thing around different experiences. I think my journey has been really great, but I do
Yeah.
remember there were these two of my friends, sorry, yeah, two of my friends who had like really bad journey at Google. They did get into like some mental health issues because their team was either not supportive or they did not have good rapport with the managers. Uh, some glitches here and there. Definitely, Google is a big company, not trying to
Yeah.
like hide or mask any of it.
Yeah.
But people do have like really, really bad experiences. I also remember
Yeah.
like talking to someone and they were talking about how Google is a silo of its own, right? Like you get into Google, you get into a Google world altogether, and then you go out in the market and you're like, hey, I'm lost. Like I don't know what to do now because
Yeah.
everything is Google
Yeah.
proprietary. You build
Yeah.
Google stuff, you become Googler, like you. eat Google, you play Google, you work Google, and then you come out in the market and you're like extremely lost. So I
Yeah.
think there's been a lot of sentiment around that as well.
Hey, there was this like I think it was a big I think I read a big article around this, but it was concerning I think some big investment firms like Goldman Sachs where they were like, Zini, they make it so easy for you to stay there all the time and work all the time. Like you have your own personal gym, you have your own bed, you have your everything in the office, and now you forget about your life. So that's also there. So it has its both the sides. There, it's always there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really, I really believe in to each their own, right? Like some people like it, some people might not like it. You can enjoy life being there as well. Like
Yeah.
uh, it's all free will. Although free will is also disputed. Never mind. I'm gonna stop because
uh, so yeah. So like one of the questions that really highlights my mind when I was going through the questions in our registration form was like it was all in big caps. Ke? Our focus was like getting into FAANG, experience of FAANG, and there was this one question was like, why should we focus on FAANG? Aren't other companies great to work with? Just okay, like it's because FAANG has been like the thing, Zailinda, and since you're like working in a startup now,
yeah,
so
yeah,
like Ani plus there's this thing about like job switch, recession, and stuff. So like particularly big companies also aren't treating that well like
yeah.
after
Yep.
employees like so what are your thoughts around it?
Yeah, so why is there a lot of focus on FANG? I do believe so as well. Like we do put a lot of focus on FANG, and it was really disheartening to me that okay, my experience in FANG has been great, and I got this opportunity to share my experience in FANG. But I would have been equally happy talking about my experience in the startup, right? Like I think I had a lot more to offer there because I think I gained a lot of like experience here. I'm enjoying my work here. So I would say that other companies are also great to work with. One thing that FANG particularly has nailed down is one, the perks, right? Second, everything is taken care for you.
Yeah.
So that you can focus a little bit more on your particular work and you can gain your expertise in that. Third is their hiring process is particularly very difficult as well, making sure
Yeah.
that people
Yeah.
you're surrounded by are like people you want to work with. Although all of this was very mythical, I feel, because right now in the startup, I feel it's the same. We do try to raise our bars as much as possible. We try
Yeah.
to hire the smartest of people. I have been surrounded by a lot of smart people right now in the startup as well. Few things maybe, and actually even startups do take care of food and all. Like I do get my lunch. We have a lot of snacks in the office. That's I know a lot of pressure coming from these big companies as well. But I think the question here is
मान्छे पाउन आशा पनि पुग्दैन होला
uh
लग्दैमा सेसनमा छु
Pustik, Pustik, you're not on mute. uh okay. Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it eventually, like, I think all of the startups are also doing that. One big
Yeah.
thing around FANG is also job security. I think they've done a good job, especially Google was known not to fire anybody, and that's
Yeah.
why a lot of people get attracted towards it. Um, and although this myth has also been bursted,
Yeah.
because of COVID, I wouldn't say it bursted because they were also in a bad situation. I know you
Yeah.
guys see the biasness I have
Yeah.
around,
Yeah.
but I would say they were like probably it was like a very, very, very hard time. There was a lot of pressure on them. Uh, COVID particularly was a bad situation for everybody around the tech world. So I wouldn't take it against them. Uh,
Yeah.
so I think job security is another thing that attracts people towards FANG. Um, and then for immigrants, it's a lot about like the ease of being able to apply for visas, right? So the big companies, they really take care of it. I remember a friend of mine had a bad experience in a startup where his visa did not really get processed. And then what else? Like, I know I'm only talking about like what are the good things in FANG and why people get attracted towards it. Now let me move into a startup. Why I got attracted towards a startup, right? The reason I got attracted to a startup was at Google, I became very complacent, where I was like very satisfied and I was like, okay, I'm not growing too much. I wanted a new challenge in my life. And I think the difference between a startup and a big company is in a startup, you really have to worry about survival. You really have to work hard or you have to work really smart to understand what will be the most beneficial for your users, and you wear different hats, you learn a lot more. At Google, I was probably getting like very one complacent, but second also like a deep dive, more of vertical learning. But at Voxel, which is the company I'm currently working at, I'm wearing different hats, I'm learning more, I'm pushing myself a little more, and that's the kind of work style that works with me. So to answer your question, I would say FAANG is not the only thing. You should probably focus on other companies as well, especially when you're starting your career and if your visa and all of that is kind of sorted out. Then you should definitely join a startup because you do get a lot of like technical depth in a lot of different areas. You might not really like maybe actually I take that back. You do get a lot of soft skills developed as well because you're trying to like basically work with multiple different teams together. You're building a product from scratch. So I would say if I were to reshape my journey, I would, after graduation, work in a startup for like maybe 4 to 5 years and then go into a big company because then I can develop my skill set accordingly around how to build scalable products and all of that. So that's how I would do my journey. Uh, Again, both of these types of companies offer different sets of things. So
Yeah,
you should understand your particular style, and
yeah,
it's not necessary that you should go with FANG only. If your style
yeah,
works with startup, you should probably look for that opportunity. Or not just startup, but mid-sized companies or other companies as well.
yeah, yeah, definitely. We're also like approaching the the final minutes of our talk too, but like before getting into the final statements, I know. Kiri, like I wanted to like हुन्छ नि dwell deep upon like हुन्छ नि AIML को पार्टहरु पनि के नि अनि I'm sure like most of us like even though most of us haven't seen it, like मैले अस्ति त्यो Google को IO event हेर्दाखेरि क्या, and there was this clip like हुन्छ नि why did Google's stock go up suddenly भन्दाखेरि अनि there was this meme like हुन्छ नि in the whole event Sundar Pichai is saying like AI 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 AI
That's funny.
like there was like somebody had counted कतिचोटि भनेको थियो and stuff and there's this whole memes circulating around होइन so like हुन्छ नि like there's AI, there's like हुन्छ नि a lot of generative things होइन coming around होइन but along with that there's also like the thing like हुन्छ नि MLOps, the current like हुन्छ नि currently you're working as an MLOps lead होइन there's data science होइन there's a lot of things that like हुन्छ नि एउटा bundle जसरी हुन्छ नि that's going forward होइन like what are your views in this अनि like हुन्छ नि what are your views in the AI tech industry especially होइन अनि yeah, you can like I'll move forward with more questions this way. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. Yeah, so I think AI has become very big. Although I do feel that right now, when a lot of companies say AI, it's basically just a marketing strategy as well, not necessarily like something they've
Yeah.
incorporated. Again, like no comments around that. But AI has definitely become huge, and I think it's really important for us as individuals to try to also move along with the market and try to catch up with the market. But I think a lot of this responsibility also comes on the government to be able to like train or figure out these skill sets as well. There's this huge conversation around how AI might take a lot of these jobs, but I'd also read somewhere that it's not about AI will take these jobs or we might lose our job for AI, but it's more about there are people who will use, like basically, people who will use AI in their job will replace people who won't use AI in their jobs. So what that means is it's not AI is replacing the jobs, but basically people's skill set that might be become like that might be become overtaken with like people who are using AI in the field itself. So it's
Mm,
more about like just trying to pivot it, get more awareness around like AI and ML itself, the advancements that's happening in the world, where exactly you can put your focus in so that you're still relevant towards it. And yeah, so I would say that like AI particularly is extremely powerful, and me being part of Voxel in the perception team as an ML ops lead, I feel there are so many. Sorry,
I don't know what that means.
that's Siri.
If
Sorry. Yeah, so yeah, I just feel there's so much of potential of AI, ML, computer vision. Computer vision is one thing that people have not even like delved into as much. And I think there's so many opportunities over there. And I would definitely in the future want to start something of my own for on computer vision. And that's how I also got in touch with like this community here, AIML community, Yugant and Rajesh. I wanted to do a hackathon in Nepal where I wanted to focus on computer vision and try to understand how computer vision itself can be useful in context of Nepal. So I think even though people are afraid that AI ML might take over their jobs, I think it's a good opportunity for us, like to leverage and like leverage AI and ML to make our lives much better. Like agriculture is one of the fields that we can put it in. All of our crops are going bad. Maybe try to figure out what we can do over there. Traffic system in Nepal can be done better using computer vision. So these are just random ideas, but I think AI ML is just an opportunity instead of something that we should be scared of.
yeah, talking about all those projects that could be done, like Kunsini. Do you
Exactly.
want to like Kunsini further like go into building stuff on your own, like maybe even here, like in the future? What are your thoughts around it, like building an actual product around?
Yeah, so I've always been a big fan of startup and I've always wanted to start my own company. But I think I've never gotten a good idea or I think things have not put like things have not aligned, like they say, right? Like when the stars align, everything comes in place. I think the second thing is also over the time I've realized that I'm not really good with like innovating things or taking that leap forward where I'm like, okay, hey, this is an idea and I'm gonna go all in towards it. I've always like worked on different startup projects in the side. But I definitely want to start my own company. It doesn't have to be that I start my own company, but at least build something from scratch. Even being like maybe someone working on the technical front or someone working on a separate front altogether. But I do want to work on like a startup, create more impact, work on a problem particularly that has not been addressed and can have like a huge impact. Talking about maybe like a field that I'm mostly interested in, and that's education mostly, and that's somewhere education, any kind of like career coaching or any kind of um, I don't know, yeah, education for girls particularly, but I do want to like start my own startup.
Yeah, yeah, and I definitely hope it circulates around AI too,
Yeah,
so we
definitely.
can get in. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So like finally to wrap this all up, I know we've gone through a lot of things, I know. Hopefully we've like Kunzani gone through most of the questions that our participants had in their mind, I'm sorry if we couldn't like Kunzani address it, like maybe it has been left out there. All in all, we try to incorporate it all. We had a great talk, and like on an ending note, is there some sort of like Kunsini advice that you want to give out, like maybe uh on the theme of like Kunsini getting into FAANG, like like how exactly should we prepare? A final note, just like in conclusion of everything, like how like just wrap up this talk, okay? This one thing.
For sure, for sure. I think it goes with the theme also. I think amazing questions asked by everybody. I really enjoyed answering those. Some might be like, I don't know, a lot of people might not agree to some very personal
Yeah,
opinions over there. But one thing I do really believe in is growth mindset. Like always have, like never feel disheartened about something you might not know. Feel proud of what you do, of your successes, and definitely for all the things that you've missed or all your failures, try to take it as a learning opportunities and learn from it. I also do believe in action-oriented things. Like if I want to get into FAANG, I'll have a plan set up where I'd be like, okay, 3 months, these are the things I'm going to do. So more action-oriented stuff. Last thing I'm going to say is I do believe that you can get into this rabbit hole of competition and rat race. Don't stress it too much. I would say take it as a learning opportunity, a journey which is full of curiosity, and don't be afraid to explore. I really, really believe in YOLO, like you only live once. And last thing, I don't want any regrets in my deathbed, so I try to like jump into different things. But again, like for different people, it works differently. But yeah, just don't be afraid to explore, and sky's the limit.
yeah, yeah, definitely wise words there. So it has been a really, really good session. I think, like, Anthony, I hope our viewers really loved it, and he gained something from it, Uh, so yeah, for those people like whose questions haven't been addressed here, Diksha will also be available through Slack, in our community channel. You can post your questions there. The community invite link is also in the chat, like Manisha has sent it there, right? So you can all communicate further in our Slack channel. Keep the like keep the Slack channel buzzing, like give out your introductions. It's a great place to like maybe meet some people that are maybe hiring, maybe some people that are building some product. I know you can just like link up and this basically work together on it, like build together in general. I think that's the core value of our community in itself. We want to like motivate that, and that's why we have Diksha with us. We wanted someone who has actually been there, done that, to tell us how do we do that one as company. And I had a lovely experience hosting like Diksha, and I hope you all had a great time too. Yeah, thank you everyone.
And thanks, Yugant. And just one more thing, yeah, feel free to ping me on Slack or on LinkedIn. I'll try to answer any of the things that I might have not answered here.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
that said, also, if you guys have any ideas around like anything AI, ML related, computer vision related, feel free to share that with me as well. I'm always like very curious to know what's on people's mind. And thanks a lot, Yugant. I think this is amazing. Like you said, I enjoyed this conversation a lot. It was a really, really fun experience for me.
yeah. And like on an ending note, like kire, this is a whole series that we've planned, and Diksha is there. Last time Saramsha was there, he discussed about like how he built up a startup in Nepal itself, and moving forward we'll have more interesting people, sharing their experiences. I know more events, exciting events coming in. uh, Everything is lined up, and we were very excited to like for people to get in hear the experiences, get motivated, do better, and stuff. And Shishir has shared an interesting idea about maybe a physical pizza meetup event, all those great ideas flowing. We'll try to manage it somehow. We'll try to make it possible as soon as possible. And I hope everybody joins in. Everybody joins in the fun. Everybody joins in and work together, connect. Yeah, I hope to see everyone in our future events too. And please join our Slack channel. That's where we like communicate the most. Like we share our information the most, like for every event. So I hope this was a great event for everyone, and thank you all for attending. Hey, yeah. So,
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.
goodbye. Yeah. Okay, everyone. Goodbye.